We have gotten so like guys, turn off social media if you are feeling like you have to feed your kids only carnivore or only even vegan, like whatever camp that is that's telling you to only feed your kids, very, very restricted, whatever. You're gonna, I don't want to say this, but like, I don't want to say you're going to fail, but you might. Like, yeah,
it's going to be really, really hard.
It's going to be so hard, and it probably is not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I say that like with so much love, because it's so much more about the relationships and about, making your kids feel safe in your home. And if that means making them pizza every Friday night and waffles on Saturday morning, and, whenever their friends come over, you have a batch of cookies going, like, yes, that's what we need to be doing.
Mamas, I can help you improve your family's health with my 5-week online course, Real Food, Real Families. It even has 5 weeks worth of meal plans. So check out nourishthelittles.com and use the code NTL10 for 10% off. Welcome to Modern Ancestral Mamas. We are Corey and Christine, two millennial moms on a mission to bring ancestral wisdom to modern motherhood. Hey guys, you would think Corey and I would get our act together after this 70th episode we've recorded. And we're still struggling.
I don't know. We're not struggling. We're just... Okay, so one of the things that we have decided about our show, and I think we decided this, at the very beginning, but we've like really leaned into it recently, is that our show is more, less polished.
I was wondering what word you were going to use. I was going to say more casual.
Oh, that sounds so much better.
Like, what do you mean less polished?
Well, but like the idea that we have settled into, we've kind of like cozied ourselves into this idea that we are inviting you all, our listeners, to kind of come into our kitchen, pour yourself a cup of tea or a mug of broth or a kombucha, and we're just going to sit and have a nice chat. We're going to talk about things that are,
interesting to us.
Yeah, interesting or like harder or something that you don't really hear about a lot in your normal mom circles. We're gonna just chit chat and have conversations about all these different topics. So yeah, a little less polished, I think is maybe accurate. We're not trying to like waste anybody's time, but it's not going to be a super edited show where you get in here and you just have little sound bites.
Yeah. I prefer to think of it as more casual and inviting. And we would love to know if you guys have felt that shift at all in the past few episodes, or if you've ever felt that at all. Definitely, please leave us a comment or DM us and tell us, yes, I feel like I'm sitting in the kitchen with you and Corey and just chatting. So, and speaking of chatting, this episode is going to be just Corey and I, because by now you have heard how many guests? Wait, it was four guests, 4 different guests on grains. Technically,
or five. Technically.
Yeah, 5 technically. We've interviewed 5 different guests, all on the subject of grains. And now Corey and I wanted to bread, right? Specifically bread. And we wanted to recap our thoughts after interviewing all 5 of those guests. So Corey, do you want to list them off?
Yes.
Which ones were they actually? And I'm wondering if I have the episode numbers. I'm going to check really fast.
Able to pull up the episode numbers.
Yeah. So we'll just tell you who the guests are, and then you guys can go back and listen to them if you haven't.
Yeah. Okay. So we interviewed Kira and Sarah and Kira from Unsifted. And okay, I'm not going to say anything about them. I'm just going to list stuff. We interviewed them from Unsifted. We call them the Unsifted girls. We interviewed Courtney Queen and Sue Becker and Bill Schindler.
Yes.
And so these are they all talked about different things. We had 2 of them So the Unsifted girls and Sue Becker are big on just freshly milled grains. And then Courtney Queen and Bill Schindler are both big sourdough fans. So you can get lots of different information on both of those topics from those 4 different episodes. We are going to talk about some of those things today. And
should we start with the first and just go through each episode and our thoughts on them? Or just word vomit our thoughts in general?
Word vomit. I mean, I have some things that I specifically want to get to, but I think if you had some thoughts on each specific episode, we could go through it like that too.
Okay,
let's do that. What do you want to say about the Unsifted girls?
Oh, that was a really fun episode, actually. And you knew more about them than I did. And I sort of went in, I think, a little bit skeptical. And you even called me out at one point. I wonder if our listeners will be able to, if you are watching that episode, if you will be able to see the shift in my face when I suddenly start believing and appreciating more of what they're saying.
You're right. You're absolutely.
I forgot to watch that, guys. Yeah, seriously.
So we were recording it, and I remember you being, you were very skeptical, which it's totally fine. And that's one of the things I like about what we do is that we're both coming at this from a different perspective. You know, you are not somebody who enjoys baking, who likes doing this kind of thing, or who even feels like you necessarily want to include bread in your life. I'm quite the opposite. You know, like I love baking. I love being able to incorporate bread for many different reasons. And I think we'll get into that a little bit more later, but I think it's so interesting. And I dare everybody to go see if you can watch that episode. It'll be on YouTube. Watch the episode. And there is a point where Christine kind of like her like countenance changes. There's like a shift in the light coming from her eyes. It was so interesting. It really was. You haven't watched it, have you?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
So there, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But I definitely felt it at the end of that episode. I started super skeptical, like we mentioned. And at the end of that episode, I felt like I was 100% sold on the fact that really, truly, if you're going to consume bread, it's imperative to mill your grains fresh. So much so to the point that my mom makes a lot of sourdough bread. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to get her a grain mill. And I didn't end up doing it for Christmas. Hopefully I'll manage to do that maybe for her birthday or another big event. But I just realized that if we're talking about nutrient density and how important it has to be freshly milled. Like that is where I'm going to get optimal nutrients from the bread that my family is consuming. I think that's what I stepped away from with that episode.
So it's interesting that you bring up nutrient density because I think that there's a, I don't know, like a mindset in the Weston A. Price space that bread is only or primarily a vehicle for butter, right? Because we all know how wonderful butter is and how great it is for your brain and your body and all the things. But people kind of look at bread as, in that space, people look at bread as being kind of like almost a throwaway. And
yeah, I mean, even I view that like you eat bread to eat the butter for the butter on top of it.
Right. Which is, I get that. I'm not disagreeing with that. The butter is definitely the very most nutrient dense thing in that equation. But if you're going to be eating bread, then it still should be the best bread possible. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it may not be that it is the most nutrient dense food on the planet, but at least, I mean, it's not a throwaway food. If it's a throwaway food, then just don't eat it. Eat the butter. Just eat, like my 4-year-old just eats pats of butter. But if you're going to be eating bread at all, then you should look at it and ask, how can I do this in the best way possible? Which is kind of what this whole series was about. why we did these 4 different interviews was that we really wanted to bring you guys all of the information we could gather, because it's gotten so noisy with sourdough and freshly milled, and actually white flour is better, or, as long as you're using organic, it doesn't matter what kind of flour you're using, or long fermented or short fermented, or, all these different things. And it just gets so noisy and it's hard to sort through all the noise. So we wanted to do this series so that we could give you guys as much information as possible so you can make whatever choice you want to make from having as much information as you can kind of gather. Okay, so what about Courtney Queen?
Wait, can I say one more thing about the Unsifted girls?
Yeah.
I was really blown away with how they insisted that bread healed them. And we heard that theme in Sue Becker's as well, which we can go back and talk about that too. But I just found it different than most healing paths I've heard of. It's very rare for me to hear that someone's healing path includes grains. Most of the time, any healing path I've heard of is an elimination of grains. So I thought that that was very interesting and unique to some of the stories I've heard in the past. So yeah, I just wanted to point
this is
that
actually something I want to talk about a little bit more in depth, and we can do it here now. Because this is something I have been, so you guys have to know, as our listeners, it is now April. We recorded our first episode in this series back in December. So I have been thinking about this kind of since then, since we started having these conversations with these 4 different guests, or 5 different guests. It's been something that's I've just been ruminating on quite a lot, because it's, like you said, it's totally different than most of these healing journeys that you hear about in the ancestral world. You hear about, I had to cut out all grains, and then I had to cut out all dairy, or I had to only eat meat, or I had to only drink bone broth for 10 days. We hear these things, and it can be very, I don't know what to say, convincing. When you hear the same thing over and over and over, it becomes very convincing. I don't know that I actually believe it to be true anymore, that the only option to heal is like a GAPS or a paleo or a keto or something like that, or a carnivore. I think I have, where I have settled on this, and I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts on it too. I have settled kind of at the point of going, well, I know this might trigger some people, but that we all kind of have a different path to walk, and that there is bioindividuality within our healing processes too. And that, maybe some people need some things and some people don't. And I know that maybe is not helpful, because if you're looking for healing, you kind of want somebody to just tell you what to do. But, I have heard a lot of people, since I have started looking into freshly milled grains, a lot of people have stories of finding healing with freshly milled grains, and from things like Crohn's, which I had thought you could never eat grains with, or lupus, all these things or Hashimoto's, all these things that in the ancestral world, or in the holistic medicine world, we're told if you eat grains, you're gonna,
increase
exacerbate the problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing to be kind of exposed to this new idea that maybe grains are not the problem, maybe gluten is not the problem, and maybe we need to change the conversation
to how are they being prepared.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing with them? How are we growing them? How are we preparing them? How are we cooking them?
Which I think is so ironic that we're circling back to that, because like it or not, that is what Weston A. Price emphasizes. Mm-hmm. Is how are these grains being prepared? And exactly what you said, grown and harvested and all of that.
Right.
Yeah. I definitely, so, I mean, we're going to get to Bill Schindler, but I actually think his was one of the most incredible episodes because he did address all of that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we want to jump to him. He was the last one.
No. Okay, wait. Let's
go in order. So now we'll do Courtney Queen.
Courtney Queen.
You go first. I went first last time.
I love Courtney so much. I think she is so sweet, so down to earth, so real, and so knowledgeable. And I just am so thankful that she spent some time with us. She was able to really get into kind of a more nitty-gritty on sourdough, and like not necessarily the like super deep dive on the science of it, which is what Bill Schindler did. But she did do a lot of science, but it wasn't undigestible science. It was understandable
accessible
science. Thank you, accessible. But she got into, some like troubleshooting with your sourdough and all of these. I just think I came away from that episode. I've been making sourdough for probably, 7 years. And I still came away with it going, oh my gosh, I learned a lot from this. So I think she's so great.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I do find her to be very accessible for the general public. For those that are not totally familiar, or maybe this is your first episode that you're listening, your first podcast episode of ours, but Courtney Queen has the blog Butter for All, and she has tons of recipes on there, not just sourdough, but the bulk of them are sourdough, and they're, in my experience, very digestible. Very easy to create anything that she has on there. For somebody who, for those of you that know, I am not good at baking, and I have found all of Courtney's episodes to
recipes.
They turn me into a star baker no matter what. So, I definitely liked her episode a lot. There was one question that we didn't get to that I remember we both were like, oh shoot, we forgot to ask her this. And I think it was the difference between kamut and einkorn. And post-recording, she mentioned something about that and how it was like literally one chromosome difference or something like that. But that einkorn was easier to digest than kamut.
But it's harder to work with.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, hers was a great episode. I don't think I have any thoughts on that one other than that.
Other than we're just going to gush about how much we love Courtney Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then next on our list are, actually I think I'm listing them in the order of publishing. So if you go back, you can probably get them in this order. So our next one that was Sue Becker. And can I just, so she is how I was introduced to not really introduced to it, but like when I moved down to Georgia, my co-chapter leader, Brittany, hi Brittany, love you. She runs the Bread Beckers Co-op down here in Georgia, where we live. Because there's Bread Becker co-ops all over Georgia, because Bread Beckers is in Georgia. But Brittany really got me truly going on fully freshly milled grains. Because before that, I was kind of doing some freshly milled plus some like organic bread flour, because it's easier to do. It's easier to bake with. And then Brittany kind of encouraged me and taught me some things to really get going on freshly milled, 100% freshly milled grains. And Brittany learned all of her stuff from Sue Becker. And that's the first time I ever heard of Sue Becker. So that it was really cool to have a conversation with her, because she's kind of an OG in that space. You know, she's been doing it since the 90s. So I think, you know, she has obviously a lot to share and a lot of information and experience and all those things. So,
yeah, that was probably the most challenging episode for me personally.
Okay.
And what?
Say more.
I know. We talked about this afterwards. There were some things that were said on that episode that I completely disagreed with. And in the moment, I'm wondering if you've heard it, then you might be able to pinpoint this. But in the moment, I wasn't sure how to respond to it. And so I just didn't. And we did not dive deeper into certain subjects, such as phytic acid or whether traditional cultures fermented grains. And so I left that episode not necessarily confused, but just a little, I felt like my skepticism returned. Where, you know, with Courtney Queen and the Unsifted girls, I could get on board with what they were saying. And with Sue Becker, I was kind of like, well, okay, I get it, freshly milled, but I still think, you know, X, Y, and Z or whatever. But she was still, I think, a wonderful guest, very accessible for a beginner baker, and had a lot of knowledge on freshly milled grains and things like that. I don't know. What do you think?
I think one of the things that the Unsifted girls and Sue Becker both said was that I had not heard of until we were talking to the Unsifted girls, is that freshly milled wheat has, 40 out of the 44 essential nutrients or something like that?
Yeah, they had said that.
And then that, from Sue Becker's standpoint, that makes it a nutrient-dense food. Right? And that, I don't know if I'd say that's triggering, but that is harder to understand as somebody who kind of has lived in this space of believing that like organ meats and grass-fed dairy and raw dairy and these kinds of things are really the truest nutrient-dense or most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. And I think that you probably have more of that than harder to reconcile that than I do, but it's still harder for me too, because I'm going, wait a minute, now I want to see like a nutrient breakdown, right? Like I want to see what, like I need a chart, right? I need a chart of liver, steak, freshly milled wheat, broccoli, butter, raw, like ice cream.
Where's my engineer friend? Awfully good cooking. Come on, Janine. We need you to make that chart for us. I need you to make this up for us.
Actually, I bet you that was the other. Okay, wait a minute. We're going to go back. That was the other fascinating thing about the Unsifted girls is I want Janine and the Unsifted girls to get together. We're going to have a party. We're going to have them to get together, and then we're going to like hash it out, right? Because they're engineers too, same as Janine, and they're going to be able to get their like super, what is it, left brains into this and like figure this out for us, because I'm going to need some answers.
No, I remember the Unsifted girls talking about the optimization problem, which is apparently an engineering problem. And I've heard Janine talk about this a million times, okay? This idea of you only have a certain number of calories you can consume in a day. So you need to optimize for the most nutrient-dense foods as much as we can on a daily basis. And so to hear these girls say that grains are the most nutrient-dense food, like you said, completely blows my mind. I'm over here thinking exactly the same thing. No, organ meats, butter, bone marrow, raw dairy, steak, those are the most nutrient-dense foods. So yes, I agree. We need a chart. an updated chart that has freshly milled bread on there along with everything else.
Yeah.
And somehow we were talking about this with Sue Becker. But yeah, Sue Becker said the same thing. Sue Becker said grains are the most nutrient dense foods out there. And Sue Becker also got very biblical, and we talked a lot about that. And let me tell you, I've had so many conversations with different friends about bread and the Bible since then. I even brought it up. I mean, my husband and I talked about it too, and he went to a school. Trying to think, like, what's the way to make this the most sense? He went to a school that was run by monks, Cistercian monks, and there was one monk in particular who has since passed away, but he was from Hungary, and he's done apparently a ton of research on bread, specifically discussed in the Bible.
Oh, and that's so cool.
Yeah, my husband told me, he's like, I can dig those up for you, all that information if you want, and we can talk about it. And he was like, I don't really remember everything that he said, but the gist of it is the reason why bread is discussed and brought up so many times in the Bible is because, according to Father Rock, it is the most accessible for humans. Like, every human has access to bread. Every person can understand bread and essentially how it's made. And every human will most likely eat bread. This was the very, just tip of the spear of what he was saying. But I do need to go back and read some of his writings and thoughts on it.
So, oh man, I really, get that information from your husband, and I want to know what this monk has said. That's so interesting, because one of the things that you and I have talked about, and that we talked about with a couple of our guests, and something that I've been working on for a while, just working through in my brain, is this wrestling with how with my Christian worldview, and the idea that bread isn't healthy, right? And that's something that I was really wrestling with for a long time when we were doing paleo as a family. Like, we did that for about 5 years, where we were really just avoiding most grains and really avoiding bread. And one of the reasons that I started incorporating sourdough and learning how to make sourdough was because I was doing a personal Bible study where I came across, the multitude of times essentially that bread is mentioned. And I saw this recently. I saw some carnivore influencer saying something like, milk is mentioned in the Bible this many times, and meat is mentioned in the Bible this many times, and wine is mentioned this many times. And there was a couple of these things, and and it was like, 40 times, 100 times, whatever. And he goes through these different foods that would be carnivore: honey, milk, meat. I think it was like pomegranates, something like that. Right. And it was like never more than 100 and something times. Right. And I looked it up.
I'm wondering, what did you find?
Oh yeah, you just looked it up too? In the original language, over 500 times bread is mentioned.
Oh, whoa.
That's insanity. Like, especially compared to, honey mentioned 100 and something times. I don't know. I'm making that 100 and something times up. I can't remember the number. But so to me, I'm like, okay, well, you just left this out intentionally. Right? Because we all know, all Christians know that bread is mentioned in the Bible a lot. Christ calls himself the bread of life.
Bread of life.
you can't divorce bread from this teaching. Now you could say, well, that's just hyperbole, right? Or that's just using it as like what you said, like this is a common thing that everybody has access to. And, you know, I looked it up at one point, and it was bread started, or wheat started to be cultivated in like before Egyptian times. So it's like really ancient. Like we've had wheat in our food system ever since the dawn of civilization. So, you know, I was wrestling with this, and we talked about it off air with a couple of our guests, because there's just been this whole wrestling within my spirit, essentially, of this conversation, where if, you know, if bread or if being not eating bread really leads to health the most. That's a weird way to say that. I'm sorry. But if it's like the healthiest thing to not eat bread, then why is bread used as such an analogy over and over and over? And why are we told to use it in the Last Supper? Why are we, you know, all these things? So you and I have talked about this a lot. Our friend groups have talked about this. I've talked about this with my mom, who's a somewhat of a not professional biblical scholar. But she knows a lot of things, and I really trust her insights. And I just have kind of come to this space of, well, maybe it's not that, you know, maybe it is used as maybe bread in the Bible is used as just a symbol, you know, like it doesn't actually mean literal bread. Obviously, Jesus is not literal bread of life.
Wow.
Okay, okay, hold on. I'm not Catholic.
I know. It's totally okay. I'll let that slide.
That's an entirely different conversation.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, don't worry.
But I just find it so fascinating. Like, how do I reconcile this? Right. And some of the people we were talking to said, well, if you're following sort of an ancestral diet, then that means that you believe in our ancestors had like this sort of Paleolithic time period where they were evolving from, you know, cavemen into what we see as more modern humans, and like in that time period. And they're like, and if you believe in that, then you have to kind of believe that that at that point they didn't have cultivated grains, right? And here's the thing, right? I don't necessarily believe that. I don't know. I'm kind of like, I don't know that I really care one way or another, or I'm not convinced one way or another if there was like this Paleolithic period where humans were not what we see as humans. Like if you look, oh gosh, here we go. This is going to get so weird. But like if you look at the Bible from beginning to the end, right, you start with Adam and Eve. So like and pretty much get in, like they're humans, right? They're full humans, and they're not in a caveman. I'm sorry, man, you brought up the biblical thing. So here we go. They start out as humans, and they're fully humans. They're not cavemen, right? So how do we as Christians who believe that kind of wrap our brains around the paleo thing and I don't know. It is like a whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking about this from a Christian perspective, then.
Which you don't have to be just like.
No.
But like.
No. Fast forward.
Christine and I are, so we're going to have this conversation.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. You can.
No, I'm not apologizing. You're just.
No, yeah.
This is the road we're on at this point.
Yeah. I think that the way we can view it is actually the way both the Unsifted the Unsifted girls and Sue Becker brought it up, which is that it is meant to be nutrient dense, and it is a form of sustenance, both spiritually and physically, when it's done correctly. And I think that the bread that we have in modern times is divorced from the way bread was meant to be. There is no way that I can look at a grocery store loaf of bread and concede that that is nutrient dense and that that is what God had intended for bread to be. It's not. It's made in a lab. It's full of preservatives and chemicals so that it can be shelf stable. That is not the way bread was intended to be. Mm-hmm. So I actually do think that I can jump on the train of, yes, bread can nourish us. And I can say that confidently when it is properly made. And from the dawn of time, humans have properly prepared bread. Macienda makes nixtamalized heirloom corn masa. They work with small farmers all throughout Mexico, and they use traditional agricultural practices. And so we like Macienda because they sell their corn masa in different colors and, throughout the US, or you can purchase directly from their website. They have blue corn, yellow corn, red, and white. And this is so that you can make your own tortillas at home. And you can use the code MAM, MAM 10 for 10% off. And if you don't want to make your own tortillas, they also sell tortillas on their website. So it's Macienda.com, and the code is MAM10 for 10% off.
All right, our second code that we're going to share with you is from Seatopia. They sell sushi grade and snap frozen fish. So it's frozen at the peak of freshness, and it's all clean, certified clean seafood that is mercury safe and microplastic tested. So check out their website, Seatopia.com. Is that right?
It's Seatopia Fish.
Fish.com.
Yeah. Hey guys, 2025 is the year for you to take control of your family's health. The first step is getting in the kitchen and cleaning out your pantry and fridge. Get rid of all of the processed crap. I can help you with my Real Food, Real Families online course. In just 5 weeks, I will walk you through all of the steps so you can start creating healthy, delicious meals for your family on a regular basis.
Go to nourishthelittles.com and click on the drop-down menu labeled Courses. Then click on Real Food, Real Families, and we're going to put a link in the show notes for you to use. Then use that code MAM10, that's MAM10, for 10% off this course.
One of the conversations I had with somebody else about this, I told Corey about this. So Sue Becker says something about how phytic acid is an antioxidant. She says that in her episode. And this was very confusing for both Corey and I. But anyway, so I asked somebody else about that, and she had her own thoughts. One of the things that was mentioned is this individual has had in-depth conversations with a researcher on this. And one of the things that they came to the conclusion of, discussing biblical applications of bread, is that the reason why the Jews were told to consume unleavened bread, obviously for spiritual reasons, but also they believe from a nutritional standpoint as a cleansing. So to detox the body and to cleanse the body during that specific sacred time.
Passover.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's why they think unleavened bread is such a large part of the Bible and of the history of Judaism and all of that, which is a very interesting and different perspective on it. So I don't know how much deeper we want to get into this.
So I think, so one thing I think is really interesting with that specifically is that, so one of my very best friends converted to Orthodoxy. Okay. So Christian Orthodoxy. Mm-hmm. I had known about it before, but didn't really know much at all. And she and I have had so many conversations since she has converted, and I have learned so much more about Orthodoxy, and it's fascinating. But one of the things that they do, which culturally that they do throughout the year, they have these different periods of fasting. And in those periods of fasting, it's not just like Lent with Catholicism. It's like, because with Lent, you give up fish or you only eat fish on Fridays. You don't eat meat. And then like usually you give up one other thing, because that happened, I grew up Methodist. So like Lent was a thing that we did too, where you'd give up something like chocolate or whatever. And it was like a trope almost. It was like I'm going to give something up and I'm going to maybe lose weight while I do it. Besides the point. Anyway, in Orthodoxy, they have these set holy fasting periods, and it's a certain amount of time during the year. It was just like half the year, essentially, where it's broken up, but it's essentially cumulative half the year, and they are giving up like all meat. I think they maybe can do fish, all oil, or is it oil? All dairy. Like they give up a lot of stuff. Like it's not just meat, but essentially they're living on grains and legumes for this period of time. And I did some research into it when she first was telling me about it, because I was like, how is this a good idea? Knowing in my brain that meat and organ meats and stuff like this are so nutrient dense, right? I'm like, how can you give these things up? Like you don't even have raw dairy to be able to counteract it, or butter or anything. But so when I looked up, and I think the Weston A. Price Foundation has like one article on this, and it's from a while ago, but it's interesting regardless. And it talks about how these are kind of like reset periods, right? Like what Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride talks about this as well, where you kind of use a period of vegetarianism as a detox period, and you don't do it for the whole year. You do it for a month or less than that, whatever. If you're doing it spiritually, then you're doing it for whatever that period is. But if you would just do it as a personal thing, you could decide. But that, that church that has those things kind of mapped out throughout their year, where they have very specific time periods that they're having these fasts, and it's kind of a good time for their whole community to sort of like do this detox. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah. I think from the existence of humanity, fasting has always been a form of spiritual cleansing and a way to get deeper, I guess, spiritually. And I also think that it aligns well with the seasons. And this goes back to, I just think humans were more connected to nature, the seasons. And yeah, I definitely think it was intentional. There is no doubt in my mind that it was not just random. There was intentionality behind it.
Yeah.
Wow, guys, we got off on a totally random tangent. Should we steer?
I don't think it's random. I think we're good.
Not random. No, it was all related. For sure. But we should steer back to Bill
we're going to get back to it. So Bill Schindler is our last
the
guest
final
on this
one.
topic.
Yeah. What did you? Well, okay, dear listener, what did you guys think of Bill Schindler?
That was very Bridgerton of you.
I know.
I could gush about Bill Schindler. I just think he's wonderful. And I think he has so much knowledge, not only from a historical and archaeological standpoint, but he also has all of this knowledge of like the science of it. And like he got nitty gritty with like pH levels and like things where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to need a visual. Like I need some way of understanding this. But I think he did a really great job of kind of wrapping up all three of the other guests.
Yes, I totally
He had no idea.
He had no idea that that's what he was doing. But he pretty much touched on everything every other guest had talked about and was able to break it down in a cohesive manner so that the listener could understand what, the past 3 episodes, what was talked about. And not only that, but I felt like he was not black or white, which you and I both appreciated that.
Yes.
Like we're sitting on the edge of our seat asking him, so is phytic acid an antioxidant or is it an anti-nutrient? And we're like, oh yes, he's going to give us the answer. And he blows us away with like, it's both. And we're just like, what?
Which is thank you.
Yes.
Like somebody is willing to say that it can be 2 things at once. 2 things can be true at once. And maybe there is a place in the diet for both of these options.
Mm-hmm.
That's the conversations we need to be having.
Yeah. Yeah. And he talked about the 3 different women that walked into his store. And he realized, one woman was asking for 100% whole grain bread, and the other woman was asking for 100% white bread. And he's just thinking in his head, how is it even possible that a white bread is good for humans? And then he dug deeper into the context and realized exactly what you were saying earlier, which is every person is going to find a different healing path. Mm-hmm. Yep. And there is something that will resonate with each individual listener in these 4 episodes. Yeah. And you're going to take whatever that piece is and you're going to run with it and you're going to figure out that it really works for your family, or maybe it doesn't. And then it'll lead you down another path. Yeah. I loved my episode, our episode.
One of the things I thought was so awesome about what he said, one of the things he said that was so awesome. Make sure I get my English right. Oh boy, guys. All right. No. So we asked him, freshly milled or sourdough, right? And then I said, or, you can't make, or both. So the options are freshly milled, 1, sourdough, 1, both, another. And then the third is like fully, just white flour from the grocery store. And he was like, listen, all of those are better than buying bread from the grocery store. Just buying a regular loaf of bread from the grocery store. Those are all better options. Mm. So, you don't have to do 100% one of everything. Mm-hmm. You can start here with your organic bread flour from the grocery store. Great. Make sourdough bread with that. Or just make regular yeasted bread with that. That is still better than buying a loaf of even the best bread at the grocery store. Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that part completely.
That one was like, he said that and I just wanted to be like, oh my gosh, we're done. Like,
well, actually,
this is all we need to do. We just need to make a short of that, like a little reel.
Yeah,
and totally. That's our entire episode, our entire series on grains. Forget the rest of it.
Well, he said something else that I think is along the same vein, which is if the only thing you do for your family is to switch out their bread, whether that's, making it at home or buying the organic, I don't remember what you just said, but the organic sourdough. Yeah, the organic sourdough, then you are already improving your family's health one step because bread is such a big part of.
See, that's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that and thought, oh, yeah, you're right. And then the other thing that he said, which honestly, I mean, Sally from the West Indian Price Foundation has said this too, but he said he's got 3 kids and he realized he could not feed his children without sourdough. Like it was just like, it was his kids were going to find it in so many other places and they were going to eat it in so many other places that if he really cared about the health of his children, he was going to learn how to make it at home and he was going to make them the pizza and he was going to make them the sandwich bread and he was going to make them the cookies because then at least they were eating it homemade and it was better ingredients in general. And I think this is something that the West Indian Price Foundation does really well, which is, guys, we're talking about families here. we're not going to be able to raise our children on a carnivore diet or a GAPS diet for the rest of their lives. There are so many external forces against us on a daily basis that if we want to really nourish our families and be in relationship with them, we got to make them the sandwich bread, or we have to just make the pancakes. I don't know. I think that was one of the big takeaways.
Say it
too.
Again.
Yeah,
I mean, louder for those in the back. I'm 1,000,000% yes.
Yeah,
we have gotten so guys, turn off social media if you are feeling like you have to feed your kids only carnivore or only even vegan, like whatever camp that is that's telling you to only feed your kids, very, very restricted, whatever. You're gonna I don't want to say this, but I don't want to say you're gonna fail, but you might.
It's gonna be really, really hard.
It's gonna be so hard, and it probably is not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I say that with so much love, because it's so much more about the relationships and about, making your kids feel safe in your home. And if that means making them pizza every Friday night and waffles on Saturday morning, and, whenever their friends come over, you have a batch of cookies going, yes, that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's kind of how that was my biggest takeaway from all of those episodes. Was I walked away thinking, all right, I'm going to try this grain thing again. I'm going to see if I can get it right. Currently, it's in the fridge. We did give up grains for Lent.
That's okay. You have 1 week left, right?
I know, 1 week left, but I am itching to get back to it, to at least improve my skill, because you guys all know I suck at this.
Yeah, okay, wait a minute. Let me say this, because I said this on the when I was on Alex Clark's podcast. We were talking about bread, and I said that it's funny. I said that making bread is therapeutic. And
for some people.
Well, here, listen, I think that what's therapeutic about it is, you could hear that and think taking your frustrations out on kneading the bread. That's not what I meant. What I meant is that the routine of it, the flow of it is therapeutic, because it can be a constant kind of rhythm in your home. And those rhythms, particularly, I think, I don't know, maybe everybody has this, but those rhythms are really helpful to me, really grounding. They really help me kind of work through my life in a way that feels connected. And it's kind of every week I make a roasted chicken so that we can have bone broth. And every week I make, some bread of some sort. And it's it's a therapeutic flow,
No, you're so right. The rhythm of it is what the kids crave. And what they need in childhood. They just know, I don't know what day is your bread day, but they just know that make it up. What's your bread day?
Wednesday.
On Wednesdays.
I don't know. That's not my bread day, but okay. I'm pretty sure that was Ma Engel's bread day, wasn't it? Wednesday?
Maybe. I don't remember. But
do you remember she had that whole thing that was wash day, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
It's that. We need more of that in our crazy modern lives. We need more of that flow, that rhythm, that moving through every day, having, knowing what we're doing on that day.
Yeah. I love that. I think that was it. Did we cover everything you wanted to say?
No, I want to talk. I have a couple of things that I wanted to go over, and then we have some rapid fire questions.
Oh, fun.
It'd be so fun.
That was a surprise. I did not know that.
I know. I didn't tell you. Okay. So we did what is our biggest takeaway. What was something that you learned that you didn't know before?
I think the pH thing, actually.
Yeah.
That's
the pH thing.
The pH thing, and that you did not need to put it in the fridge, because
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, because if you put it in the fridge, then it kills the bacteria or halts the bacteria production.
Bill Schindler's episode, we were talking about long fermented, and I said the way I would do it was make sourdough go all day, and then I'd shape it and put it in the fridge for 2 days. And he was like, that's completely not necessary. It doesn't do anything for the health of the bread. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
So that was my biggest
learning
takeaway
point. Yeah.
Learned thing. Okay. Do you think modern humans should eat bread? This is maybe a big question. It could have a lot of facets and go.
Wait, did we ask Bill this?
We did kind of, but I want to know what you think.
Yeah. I think that we can eat bread under two categories. Number one, it's properly prepared. And number two, the person is not on a healing protocol.
What does properly prepared mean?
Now, I think that means freshly milling the grains. If you want to try freshly milled with sourdough, go for it. But definitely, at the very minimum, it needs to be organic, freshly milled grains.
Do you think... So are you unconvinced that sourdough is 100% necessary as long as it's freshly milled?
Yeah, I think I'm going to, for me personally, it gave me a little bit of leniency on not everything has to be sourdough. Yeah. It's okay for me to make a quick bread as long as it's freshly milled. But I think for me, it's solidified. I'm not buying flour from the grocery store anymore. It is only freshly milled grains.
Yeah.
That was the biggest shift for me. Realizing, is that there's no need to buy flour at the grocery store. It's rancid. It's not good for me. I'm going to start buying grains in bulk, and
So in my cabinet, I have a jar of whole all-purpose flour, and it is cheap flour. It's not organic or anything, and I bought it only to make Play-Doh with.
Oh yeah.
And I have a big sticker on the jar that says "Do not eat."
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's like Play-Doh only.
Yes. Yeah.
My kids go through so much Play-Doh, by the way. It's annoying.
I admit I have never made Play-Doh before.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun to make it. And it lasts a lot longer than the tubs of Play-Doh you buy at the store.
Oh, okay. I gotta try that.
It doesn't dry out as much as long as you put it in a container or bag or something.
Okay.
Okay. I think that was it. So we're gonna move on to rapid fire. Okay.
So I'm guessing this is only for me because you've already seen these questions.
No, I have already seen them. So that's a little unfair. But you can answer them, and if you feel like you want me to answer them, say so.
Okay.
You want to do it like that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So first one, what's more intimidating, sourdough or freshly milled?
Oh, I think freshly milled.
Okay. I think so too.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. How ultimate bread, crusty, chewy, fluffy? Come on,
crusty,
Christine.
Chewy, fluffy. Ooh. I think chewy.
Chewy.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Oh, no, I would agree with you. Chewy.
Oh, okay. Sure. All right.
Okay. Does your starter have a name? Does your sourdough starter have a name? If so, what?
No, I have not named it. It's really lame. It hasn't. I know. Oh, you haven't named it either?
No, I haven't. I can't.
I think it needs to be more integrated in my family for me to name it. And right now it's just sitting in the fridge collecting hooch.
I have seen some really clever names. I think there have been some really funny ones. I can't think of any of them off the top of my head, but there's some really punny sourdough starter names. And if I were to name it, it would be something like that.
Okay. We got to think about that. Poll the listeners.
Yeah.
Have you guys named your comment? If you've named your sourdough, leave a comment that says, I've named my sourdough. This is its name. Okay.
Right.
Go.
Okay. True or false? A toaster is an overrated appliance.
True.
Oh yeah. 100% true. Okay. Dr. Seuss, The Butter Battle. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Nope. No? Never read it.
Okay. All right. So now this is not rapid fire because I have to explain it. Dr. Seuss's book, The Butter Battle, is it's a social commentary on racism, but it is a book about these two groups of people, of creatures. One, and the whole battle is about how you butter your bread. Butter it butter side up or butter side down. So I was going to say butter side up or butter side down, but now it's completely
butter side
lost.
Down? Wait,
I
but
know,
what do you
it's ridiculous. It's silly. It's Dr. Seuss. It's not meant to be taken seriously.
Okay, all right. Pass.
Butter side down, All right.
Pass.
Next. What is the most unhinged thing you've ever added to bread dough?
Oh, I'm the worst person to ask this. I haven't done anything interesting with bread dough.
Okay, so ask
chocolate chips. What is the most
yum. That sounds good though.
Bread dough. I mean, I was just thinking like cookies, but bread dough? No, not me. Okay, most unhinged thing you've added to bread dough?
Bone broth.
Oh,
I made sourdough with bone broth instead of water. And I added some like poultry sort of seasonings, like herbs that are sort of poultry-ish. And then I used that. This is so extra. Like, this is dumb. But I used that to then make stuffing for Thanksgiving.
Oh, that is very extra. But wow, that's a great idea. Wait, but this actually brings up the topic of, if anybody here follows Tara Couture of Slow Down Farmstead, she talks about how you don't need sourdough to ferment your breads. Like, you can use vinegar, you can use kombucha, you can use what else have I seen? Water. Yeah, like there's so many different ways to ferment. It doesn't have to just be sourdough. Right. So I think that's interesting.
I actually think that is super interesting, like when we go back to the historical conversation, because think of how many different things people were using to wild ferment their bread.
Yeah.
While capturing wild yeast to be able to make bread. So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is the next question. If slicing into hot bread is wrong, do you want to be right?
I know, right? No, I don't want to be right. Because admittedly, I have never waited for a loaf to cool.
It's impossible.
Yes.
It's impossible. I usually, if I have to make at least two loaves, because if you slice into one, then that one's done for, and you have to just eat the whole thing.
Yes.
No other option. And then if you have another loaf, then you're good, and you have some that's not ruined.
That's a good point. Okay.
All right. Best way to eat bread: butter, olive oil, or pate?
Oh, those are both definitely not olive oil. I would say butter and pate. Because I can't pick one. I would probably put butter on top and then maybe pate so that I can have
butter
them both.
And then pate. How about my favorite way to eat pate, we'll just say it like that, is to pan fry or pan toast sourdough in butter and then put pate on it.
Oh, girl. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. Yeah, because then it's like crusty and crispy and you can just like crunch and my mouth is watering right now. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Remember that.
2 more. First reaction: soup in a bread bowl
Okay. Soup
So what's
in a
your
bread
first
bowl.
reaction? Yeah.
Not into it. Yeah. Meh. I think it's overrated.
Okay.
Because I think in soup, it's better to have either crispy bread on the side or like a grilled cheese that you dip into it. Yeah, I don't like soup in the bread bowl trend. Lame. What do you think?
My first reaction is Renfest.
What?
I just like, have you ever been to a Renfest?
Ren?
Yeah, Renaissance Festival.
Oh, no, a Renaissance?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. That is totally something you would do.
Yeah, 100%. Ask me if I've ever dressed up. The answer is yes.
Definitely.
I love Renaissance festivals. Have you never been to one? You live in Texas. The best one is there.
Yeah, what is that thing called? I've been to it one time. What is it called?
The Renaissance Festival?
No. There's a specific name for it.
Okay, so the biggest Renaissance Festival is in Texas. I cannot remember what city it's in, state.
Totally Googling this.
There's a whole documentary about it, which is fascinating. However, okay, so at the Renaissance festivals, almost always there will be a soup in a bread bowl vendor, and
Scarborough,
like Scarborough Fair.
Yeah, it's called the Scarborough Renaissance Festival. It's massive. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I've been one time to Scarborough.
Have only ever been to the Maryland Renaissance Festival, which is wonderful. We went last summer when we were up there, or fall when we were up there. But yeah, that's my first reaction to soup in a bread bowl. I only really like it if it's like a beef and vegetable soup. Otherwise, I'm like, no, I don't want it. But I like how I like that it kind of gets like soaked in, and you can kind of like, I don't know, it sounds gross.
See, it's like, I don't like that.
Gloopy bread.
Yeah.
I don't know. It tastes really delicious. Maybe it's just like at the Renfest, it's really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nope.
But I admittedly have on my Amazon cart that has been like on my cart, and I just keep like saving for later for like 3 years, 4 years. I've been saving it for later. Please tell me I'm not the only one that does this.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
It like bread bowl sized sourdough.
Oh, like ramekin kind of things, right?
Yeah, no, but like the size basket. What is the basket called that you cook or that you shape sourdough in? Oh no, banneton.
Thank you.
A little, but it's like a little one to make
bread bowl banneton.
Yes.
Look at that.
He's so cute.
Bring that up out of saved items. It's going to be the next reel.
I don't know that my children will eat it. I feel like I'd put all this effort into it and buy these things, and they'd be like, Mom, this is gross.
Yeah.
Be my luck. All right, last one. Pancake. Is it a flatbread?
A pancake?
Yeah.
No.
Why not?
What's the definition of a flatbread?
I don't know. What is like?
No, I don't.
Nebulous.
Yeah. I don't think a pancake is a flatbread. They're supposed to be fluffy. And
what? Naan is fluffy, right?
Oh, dang it. I don't know.
Technically flatbread?
I don't know the answer.
Technically flatbread. I don't think there is an answer. It's just silly.
Yeah. Okay.
Alrighty.
I think that was it.
Guys, that closes out our grain series.
Yeah.
Can you believe
Thank you for listening.
5 episodes.
Yeah. Totally. 6 if you count this one.
No,
but
5 if you count this one.
Oh, 5 if you count this one. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you for listening to the grain series. And we would love to hear your thoughts on it. Really, really very curious to know whether you guys got anything from it, whether you found it helpful. Did it change your opinion on anything bread related? So please take the effort, make the extra effort to leave us a comment or DM us.
Yeah, or send us a DM. You can send it to the MAM account, the Modern Ancestral Mamas on Instagram, or you could send it to either Christine or I individually. Or you can leave comments on YouTube. That might be a good place to do that.
Yeah, we'd love to have a conversation with our listeners on their thoughts regarding.
Yeah, because there's a lot. Like, I mean, we've just talked for an entire hour on this, but there's a lot to talk about. And it's not necessarily black and white, and not necessarily everybody's going to be doing the same thing. And yeah, we just love to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
So hit us up wherever you feel like it. And then
don't forget to leave us a 5-star review, please. It's free and it's a great way to support the show. And share it with your friends and family members. And hit the little subscribe bell on YouTube if you are somebody who likes to watch things, which it might be fun to watch this episode. I mean, Corey and I are just hanging out.
We're being goofy this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely one to watch. I just want to do a little shout out. I am so thankful for all of our listeners. I'm just really thankful for all of you guys for listening and tuning in and watching and talking with us over on Instagram. And I just love doing this with you, Christine, and I love our audience. I think it's really, don't cry, no crying. I just love this. I think it's great. And so thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for Christine for doing this with me.
Thank you, Corey. This is so much fun. I enjoy it too. I'm going to read one review.
Okay, cool.
I mean, we get lots of reviews, but I want to read this one. It says, love it. 5 stars. Thank you. I've been loving this show for a year now. As our family is growing, it is so helpful to hear tips and tricks from other moms on how to nourish your family in practical ways. I have learned so much through the podcast and appreciate the work you guys do. By Anne E.G. Thank you, Anne.
Thanks,
really
Anne.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, so you guys, if you haven't had the chance yet, go back and listen to the other 4 episodes in this series, and give all of those people follows or whatever. I do want to say, no, never mind. So go follow all of them, and then you can follow Christine on Instagram at Nourish the Littles. You can follow me on Instagram at For Nutrient's Sake. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at Modern Ancestral Mamas. And all the listen wherever you get podcasts, watch on YouTube, all that stuff. So I think that is all we have for today, you guys. Thank you so much. We love you. See ya.
Bye.